All right, Artleys, welcome to lesson 3 of this anatomy course. In this lesson, we'll be focusing on the neck muscles. So the last part kind of our first main mass. Now, it's important to understand during this course that we are focusing on the muscles from a structural point of view, meaning that you will need to show understanding of the manipulated 3D forms that make up these muscles, rather than just knowing their names and their 2D graphic shape of where they intersect. This will save you a lot of trouble when designing creatures and characters from imagination, which is essentially our goal with this course and with our ArtWalk platform. We want to create 2D problem solvers. When we look at the bones that make up the neck, we can see that the spine plays a huge role in this anatomy. More specifically, the cervical spine with disc C1 to C7, which you don't really need to remember, running from the cranium of the head till in between the scapula of the back. So anteriorly, the neck muscles will also attach to the clavicle, right here, right, and the first rib of the rib cage. When seen from the front, the clavicle has a distinguished shape that is similar to that of a bike handle. Try to envision these bones again as manipulated forms, where the cervical spine acts as sort of a tapered cylinder. And both the clavicle and the first rib represent a more, bent cylinder with a manipulated contour that kind of tapers off as well. An interesting piece of trivia, by the way, that I learned from our teacher Lex regarding the neck is that when you move your head up or down, your neck barely moves, or at least, the bones of your spine. Instead, your cranium just hinges along the neck bones, and your neck muscles provided the much needed stability to control this movement. Moving on to the muscles of the neck, we can see that from the side, there are 4 major muscle groups. We have the trapezius muscle from the back, covering the cervical spine. We have the levator scapula, which aids in lifting the scapula bones. We have the sternocleidomastoid, that big name muscle, that runs from the cranium right behind your ear, and the mandible, all the way to the center of the clavicle. And lastly, the throat muscle group, so this group, that is held together by the hyoid bone, which is a little ring bone. And this bone acts as a ring that holds all of these muscles together, as you can see here in the video as well. From the front, we will see the same muscle groups, with the exception of the levator scapula. Overall, this muscle will rarely be visible when human skin is applied on top. Most importantly, for you to remember are the manipulated simple forms that make up these muscle groups. The trapezius muscle, in its whole, is diamond in shape. However, for the neck portion of the body, we are only looking at the top part of this muscle. What we can see here is that the trapezius muscle is kind of like an inflated cylinder along the shoulder girdle, and it tapers off towards the cranium of the head. The sternocleidomastoid muscle, however, or the SCM, almost acts in reverse, where it starts as a fairly inflated cylinder at the head and then tapers down very thinly and branches off towards the clavicle. The throat muscle group can be separated into 2 distinct simple forms. A simplified bird shape almost above the hyoid bone, and the letter V below. In case of men, a protrusion of the Adam's apple can be found in the negative space of this V shape. When we understand the simplicity of these forms, we will have an easier time drawing and rendering this form from imagination in different viewpoints. Your assignment for this lesson will continue throughout the entire course. We will often provide you with reference that you can trace where you need to indicate the muscles you have studied in said lesson. For this lesson, that means you will trace a total of 10 reference images from the images provided in the resource section. As seen here in the example provided by Axel, it is important that you indicate the manipulated 3D form that represents the muscle, not simply a 2D graphic shape. So, to receive better feedback, we also strongly advise you indicate the contour of each muscle and where it kind of is manipulated, so we know that you understand its 3D form in space. Secondly, you will invent 3 necks by placing the muscle groups on top of the skeleton images we provided. Again, a good indication of 3D manipulated forms is required to pass this lesson. Then lastly, you will take one of these muscle inventions, these necks that you've just invented on top of the skeleton, and you will draw the resulting neck with skin on top, as you can see here shown in the example. That's it for this lesson. Happy learning, Artleets, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.